Previously, in X-Men, the mysterious marauders are on the march to dole out pain and death to mutants, starting with those who are vulnerable and in hiding. Two questions remain. Can they be stopped, and will it be in time? I am Jason Lapidus.
I'm Chris Sanagan.
And we are Group of Seven Comics. Welcome to episode 140 of our ongoing live stream read-through of the X-Men comics that became classic, as we read Uncanny X-Men issue 211 by Chris Claremont, John Romita Jr., Bret Blevins, and Al Williamson. Cover date of November 1986. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Jason?
I'm fine, man. A little flustered. I'm like so overwhelmed by the fact that more than 2 years in the making, we finally have got Anthony Falcone on here. Writer Anthony Falcone. Welcome to the show, Anthony. I hope you're doing well. I know you're feeling a little under the weather.
So I got a little bit of a cough, but I got some tea, I got some halls, ready to talk some X-Men. What more could you want, right?
That does sound pretty fantastic. Of course, we do usually do this on a Tuesday night, so Ali is saying in the chat, happy Faux Tuesday, everybody. All you awesome nerds. Michael, hello to you as well. Massimo, how are you, man? Hopefully, I'm going to see you very soon. Time for the Monday Mutant Mayhem. Yeah, man. The triple alliteration, I'm down for that. We normally would love to do this on Tuesdays. It really doesn't make that big a difference in the long run. Happy to adjust things as need be. Sorry we weren't here last week. I was reminded on Sunday night last week that I was headed to Buffalo to go see Jeff Tweedy, the creative core of Wilco, perform at the Buffalo State University in the Performing Arts Center. And that was a really awesome night. So I was really glad knowing that all of you were going to be stable and going to be okay if I stepped away for a night to go enjoy some live music, which was awesome, by the way. And I got to eat amazing, amazing buffalo wings in the college cafeteria. And they have an Anchor bar in the cafeteria at the college. I was like, all right, let's just do this. It was so depressing. So depressing. If you're going to go for wings in Buffalo, like maybe go to the bar. Don't go to the non-alcohol serving Anchor bar in the college cafeteria. Not the best way to do it. So, of course, we are reading 211. This is like a big deal. Again, I was 11 years old when this one came out, reading it off the shelf. This is my copy from being a kid. Neat time of Marvel's history with that cover. We can actually all the issues that came out this month had that cover. Oh, you got your Daredevil handy. I was really happy to get my G.I. Joe with Snake Eyes on it. He was holding up his Uzi in a really awesome, I think it was Mike Zeck who drew that one. I could be wrong. An Alpha Flight, there was an issue with Vindicator. The new Heather Hudson Vindicator was on there. So those were the ones that I was buying at the time for real. But I love all these covers. There are many people who've gone and bought the whole month just to collect all these ones. And I've always wanted to do that too, but I haven't got around to it. But anyway.
That's a pretty solid X-Men one, though, like Wolverine.
This one?
I like that. Yeah.
I had fun taking it out of its frame because some of these pieces are mine. Like I had to add on a little bit to the drawing. It's like not a good use of time to augment a John Romita Jr. drawing to try and make it fit. But there are quite a few elements that did not work. I needed to just patch it a little with some stucco and a little bit of this and that just to make it work.
This is also one of the covers from the month, though, that actually like kind of hints at what the story is inside. Whereas a lot of the other ones were just kind of cool poses of that character, right?
Totally.
Whereas this one kind of, what happens in this one? Or
not even a cool pose, just a smiling face.
Chris, do you know who drew that one, the Daredevil one?
The artist on the book is Sal Buscema, so I'm not sure if he also did the art for that.
Nothing signed on the cover, maybe. It doesn't look like Buscema, but I could be wrong. Who knows? Either way. That's totally cool. Fun. We talked last week about this awesome ad that was in the comic books of that time period to try and give readers a sense of what was going on in these comics. It was not included in X-Men 210. Putting that out there. So I think the first month where this was maybe included, even is it in this issue? I actually haven't. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's at the back page of 211. So they didn't have it out in time for 210.
Okay, sorry, I got to interrupt myself here right now. I have it wrong. This issue is inked or is penciled by Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, apologies.
That's not a Barry Windsor Smith looking cover.
No, it isn't. But I can definitely see now, just as I'm just going to read this I'll see you guys in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have fun, Chris. We'll see you later. That's totally cool. Anthony, now I know that we mentioned last week as well, and you talked about how this is like the first X-Men crossover event.
Yeah.
And this then becomes like the staple, right? They have to do this every year.
It becomes a little bit of a blueprint for how the company ends up doing events, really. And it isn't even like a crossover in the way that we would come to think of it. Like, there's not technically a part one because, right, like X Factor comes out the same month. Like you see the weird, sort of, you can start at X-Men and then you can read X Factor, but you can also, if you want, you can also just read the X Factor parts or just read the X-Men parts, right? Like, it's very kind of disjointed in that way. But if you collect everything, then you know everything that sort of happened, right? And there's some really kind of, neat stuff that comes from it, right? Like the Thor stories are basically about Thor rescuing Angel from the Marauders later on. The Daredevil story is this like ridiculous street fight between Daredevil and Sabretooth, and it's
this one right here.
Yeah,
it's that one too,
right? Like fantastic issue that
it's
just
not even
comes
on
out
there.
of nowhere.
No, it's the Mutant Massacre continues is what it says.
Oh.
And that's the two of them going at it.
Right? Like the Daredevil one should be in this breakdown of the map because the Thor one is, right? But randomly the Daredevil one just isn't. But in collected editions that Marvel put out later on, the Daredevil is in it. But this was such like this fundamental, I think, kind of groundbreaking sort of way of presenting a story, both in subject matter, but also in the way that now you had to collect everything to understand what was going on. And so 1986, I'm 9 years old. And my grandfather, his birthday was in January, right? So January 1987, we are at the Red Lobster, right? And when you were a kid at the Red Lobster, they would bring out a treasure chest. I assume they still do this. I don't actually know, but bring out a treasure chest and you could pick a toy from in there. But this time they actually had some comics in there too. And so my brother picked this issue out and we must have read this thing like 100 times over, cover to cover, just blew our minds as kids. Like, just what was going on. Like, everything was crazy. People are just dropping like flies. The subject matter is so serious. They're hunting down these mutants. And then you just sort of do more research, like, what kind of mutants? Oh, they're the Morlocks. Oh, what are they? They're mutants that have like crummy powers. Like if you touch milk, it goes sour and stuff like that, right? Like just all sorts of like awful stuff like that, but we're gonna get rid of them. And then as an adult, you find out that this was kind of based because there really were people living in like abandoned, like, subway tunnels, and just like everything about it. I loved instantly. And so like the art, the like just everything, this was the issue, even though I never collected X-Men comic, like Spider-Man was always my thing. And I mostly had Spider-Man stuff and Thor stuff and all that. But this was the issue where I was like, wow, I want to collect comics. Like this specific issue made me take it up as a hobby for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, it for me as well, it definitely broadened my scope. Now that you say Daredevil, Chris, can you verify that Ann Nocenti writes that issue? I'm saying that just
I think she does.
hunch,
yeah.
Right? Because that fits with the keeping it within your circle of friends.
Yeah, she's known as a scripter. She's credited as a scripter.
Totally fine. Who's the artist on that one?
Well, that's Barry Windsor Smith.
Oh, no. Sorry, on the one with Sabretooth.
Oh, Sabretooth. Sorry.
The Sabretooth Daredevil fight.
Right.
I think that one's Sal Buscema.
That's Sal Buscema.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nocenti's a writer. There you go. There's Sal Buscema. There's that.
So that keeps it within the circle of friends, right? Where it's as just writers, we just have Walt Simonson, Louise Simonson, Chris Claremont, and Nocenti. That's the circle of people that are involved. With Claremont writing New Mutants and X-Men, Louise Simonson writing X Factor and Power Pack, Walt writing Thor, of course, and then Anna Senti, editor on X-Men. I don't remember if she's editor on X Factor. I could take a look, but I don't have them on hand. But it's just that little core group of people who want to work together, and they're creatively, like, they have their hierarchy worked out as to sort of whose opinions matter and how they can talk to each other to get things to go a certain way. And they can collaborate without it getting outside of their little office bubble in a way. So I'm not surprised that Anna Senti's getting a title in on there. Like, why not get in on the fun? And maybe give her a sales bump too, right? I mean, Daredevil's already, this is post Frank Miller's run, so Daredevil's already a high-selling book. I don't know how much sales dropped, if at all, after he left the series. I haven't been looking at Daredevil sales numbers, but it'd be just neat to see. Like, I love that they're working in this little hub of people. Ali adds, that's an awesome touchstone, Anthony. I think I decided to collect before I had the issue that started the collection. Yours is such a cool intro. Big time. I mean, Red Lobster.
I know, right?
I love those things that where, you know, my first Marvel comic was a G.I. Joe at a convenience store. But my first superhero Marvel comic was in like a grab bag at Chuck E. Cheese. Right. Like those. And obviously I've bought tens of thousands. I don't know how many Marvel comics since then, but just it's seemingly infinite amount. But we need those ways in. Like those were things that hooked these non-comic book readers into this world. You need comics at the dentist office, maybe at the barbershop, or whatever it's going to be in these grab bags and these prizes. That is definitely a way that kids get interested. And once they find out that they're in the middle of a story, like I wanted to know everything. I want to know everything that came before that I'd missed in how many years, you know, in 20 years of comics. And I want to know everything that's going to happen next. It's arguably an essential part of getting new readers in, is these unorthodox methods of getting comics to kids free or as gifts or who knows what.
It's almost as if the natural evolution, maybe not natural, but the evolution of that is Free Comic Book Day now, because you think of those access points, you know, dentist office classic. Right, dentist office, red lobster treasure chest, amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, to our understanding and knowledge, those access points just don't exist in the same way anymore. So you have something like Free Comic Book Day or the Halloween giveaways. They're all free comics. They're all giveaways. Yeah. You know. Anyway, it's interesting.
I mean, there's also like the one thing also that sort of changed is that, you know, as a kid, you had whatever money you had, allowance, a couple coins you found here or there, kind of thing, right? And this is when we start dating ourselves, but still.
Sure.
And so then you had your collection of comics, but that was yours. And if you wanted to read more comics, you would have to go to a friend's house and read their comics, and you just sit there reading comics. That was like a thing that we actually did once upon a time, right? And I feel like that's a bit of a cultural touchstone that just, I don't think it exists anymore, right? Like you just kind of, because people might grab it online, or maybe they've seen it at a friend's, but not in the sense of, hey, do you want to come over to my house? We're just going to spend 2 hours reading comic books.
And hopefully you have some candy.
Right. Like,
you know, maybe there's something cool there, and maybe there is like a dog or cat that's really funny to see, and a sibling that doesn't bother anybody. Ali says, oh, I live in Canada where there are comics at the dentists. I mean, it was the 80s, so I'm assuming there were comics at the dentists in the States too, but I can't be sure. Dan Alvin says, Power Pack 27 is awesome. I have these titles filed together intermittently in chronological monthly order as they published, which is outlined on this map. That must be a fun thing to have, just all of them set up. Now I kind of want to go, I think I have Power Pack maybe 1 to 25. I think 25 was like a double-sized issue where, correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone here knows, maybe Dan knows, where all the characters' powers got swapped in Power Pack. And so they had to do some power swapping, and it was really, really fun. And I believe I have that issue, but that might be the last one. My brother and I collected the Power Pack. He collected Power Pack. I did not, but I took his comics after he moved out. He left for university and left his box behind. And there were some awesome things in there, including Lone Wolf and Cub and all the Watchmen. And, all right, Ryan, go to university. I'll take these off your hands, buddy. So I'm happy to have those. But anyway, I should take a look and see if I have number 27, because I wouldn't mind reading up on that. Massimo says, Sounds like a pitch for a guerrilla marketing plan. Totally. When you go to the doctor's, dentist, or whatever kind of appointment, bring some comics and just leave them behind. I wonder if they would let you. I'm not sure. Ali adds, my brother and his best friend decided that I was going to start reading comics. After that, it was exactly like Anthony said. We'd all hang out, read each other's titles, split the cost. It's so good when you get to do that, as long as you don't have to get the Kralya Stremski with the big sideburns. Radioactive Man, number 1. Right. Was that the issue? Was it number 1 they got?
Yeah.
Because how do you share that thing, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, there you go. The first hit's free, then you have to start paying, Michael says. Big time. All right. So before we go into the issue, one more thing, Anthony. Do you want to plug anything you're currently working on or has recently come out that you want us to know about?
So I always like to point anybody to anthonyfalcone.ca. You can head on there, see what I'm working on. You can sign up for a newsletter. I also have the monthly podcast Story Beater with Andrew Wheeler, where we talk about pop culture writing. But this week, I'm just finishing, like I really can see the end zone this time on my second novel. So that's been like this huge project that I'm working on for a while. And when that's put to bed, then it's going to be time to shift back into some comic stuff. But it's been really exciting. It's a sequel to Comic Con Man, the heist novel that I wrote. So this is another heist about a Comic Con on a train. So there's a train ride and that Comic Con gets heist as well, right? Because you know how I love heist stories, and we all love train heist stories. And so that'll be the big sequel. But so the hope for that one is once I put that one to bed, then sometime in 2025, that'll be a Kickstarter, but has to go through a lot of, I got to clean up some copy, get some revisions, make sure everything for the printer works, and then get it ready to heave-ho with Kickstarter, right? So
awesome. That is super exciting. I'm really happy to hear that you're, as you said, you can see the end zone, like you're getting near the end of that process. That's a Herculean feat, if not any other.
And before
it's huge. And
before that comes out, you were mentioning, getting back into comics, and so I will pump your tires a little bit here, folks. Go find copies of Amazing Fantasy 1000. Anthony's got a story in there. Spider-Man. What has got here? Batman, Urban Legends. You got a story in that one as well. The Little Man of Gotham. That's yours. And I'll say Captain America as well. This is the one of the variant covers. I don't know which number this is. 25.
Yeah, it's 25. Yeah,
you get a story in there as well. So there you go, folks.
With Michael Cho.
Yeah.
With artist Michael Cho on 3 separate titles: a Spider-Man, a Batman, and a Captain America.
Yeah, no, those were fun. So Mike did the art, and we co-wrote the stories, and it was a lot of fun. And they've been they've been really well received. So so hope everybody checks them out, has some fun with them, because we had fun making them.
That's awesome. I mean, working with Michael Cho, I adore his stuff. I think there's a Michael Cho right there over my Fantastic Four right there. He's been always really nice to run into and talk to at conventions, but working with him must be a real pleasure to see those ideas from stories get visualized by such a strong cartoonist. So that's really cool. Lucky guy. Dan says, the kids, or this is back to Power Pack. The kids were still dealing with the wake of their power switching in 27, if I recall correctly. Logan with the youngest Power Pack member, Katie, and Barry Windsor Smith's Uncanny 205 is such an emotional epic. Big time. And I love how they have, I think he ends up calling her Katie Girl by the end of it. They build their bond. And that's like a good trope of Wolverine, right? Him and a young girl having like the father protector role with Kitty Pryde, with Katie Powers, with Jubilee, with Rogue, even for that amazing issue of 173, I think it was, right around there. So that's an ongoing great thing. And of course in the movie too. Chris, did you see the Marvel Legends Sentinel that they just unveiled from the X-Men 97?
No.
So New York Comic Con was this weekend. Anthony, I don't know if you like action figures or not, but if not, tough shit, buddy. Marvel Legends, the team unveiled an X-Men 97 Sentinel that is like 170 maybe US, like 140 something Canadian, 22 inches of animated series awesomeness. All the fingers are articulated, like battle damaged head you can swap out, and insane. And no, I'm not getting it. I guess that's the bottom line.
You say that.
Yeah. No, that's very intense, but I would love to get that one day, but I'm not in that ballpark when it comes to action figures.
I'm just saying a real toy fan would just eat bologna and cereal for a month and buy the Sentinel character. So maybe you can figure that out.
Well, I have a toy collecting, not fairy godmother, but like a friend who is further in than me that can give me advice, or I can share my thoughts and fears with. And it's pretty clear that when it comes to collecting, I'm more comics than action figures. So where I'll buy an artist edition for a significant amount, I won't go buy an action figure. Like one is also a tax write-off and the other one is not. So
how can they not be both a tax write-off? Especially if it's articulated. You're like posing it, you're using it as like a model. Come on, man.
All right.
So, talk to your accountant.
If I had an X-Men art gig, I would get one in a second, but I don't have one yet, or not this week at least. So tons of fun, but I definitely would rather spend, let's just use the number of 100. I'd rather spend $100 on great comics than on a great action figure. That's just for me, but I do have some great action figures too. Just not the kind that are premium. And yeah, $240 for a Sentinel who's just going to be posed in the background of some sort of diorama,
which you've already constructed. You're like some sort of diorama, some sort of something, but the guy is here and then here, like it's already X-Men
they're like right there. The X-Men are here. I would actually be probably okay with just drawing an awesome Sentinel on cardboard or something, or in Bristol, and putting it as part of a display. I don't need to have the real thing in 3D. But if one fell into my lap, I'd play with it for a good long while. All right. Love this cover. Always disliked that. I'm assuming it's Al Milgrom who did all the characters around it. I always thought they don't look on brand or on model for the stuff that's in the rest of the comics. It was kind of chunky, and I always was upset that Puck was made to be a joke. Do you see him in there, Chris? He's hiding.
I'm gonna switch the one that I can see because of my. He's hiding. Oh, there he is. There he is.
Right underneath the corner.
He's all squished.
Yeah, underneath the UPS. Is that what it's called? UPC? Whatever it's called. Anyway, I never liked that joke. I was an Alpha Flight reader first, so making fun of Alpha Flight never sat well with me. But seeing, X Factor, everyone looked like they were different sizes. It never worked for me, but I love the idea of these borders. It just, that tickled me to no end. And I do think, if we're talking action figures, I have every single one of these characters, not necessarily in this costume, but I have a figure of every one of these characters, with the exception of Rachel Summers. That's the only one I don't have. So come on, Marvel Legends. Let's get us Rachel Summers, and I can finish this. I can finally have all these in action figure form. And Anthony, you've said you don't want to read a character, and we're going to miss you. Yeah. And we're going to make fools of ourselves in front of you, and I hope you enjoy.
I will.
As we do some terrible voice. Well, I'll do some terrible voices. Chris will knock your socks off. Especially if anyone happens to be Banshee in this book. Oh. Chris, do you remember who we were reading as the Marauders last time? Like who was reading who?
No.
All right.
Well, I remember, Jason, that you were Scalp Hunter because you used your Charles Bronson impression for him.
Hey, Patty.
Wow. That might be true. I do actually think, if memory serves, that we swapped partway through the issue. Chris might have finished a Scalp Hunter and I started a Scalp Hunter. But
so we'll just do Charles Bronson both ways, right?
Yeah, it's all good. And you can see on this, if you go to the first page, you can see it does not look like John Romita in all those figures. We've got, of course, John Romita and Bret Blevins on pencils. And that character on the left is clearly not a John Romita Jr. drawing. That, I mean, if you've seen Bret Blevins stuff, especially his work on New Mutants coming up, that looks like his artwork completely. But then there are some trappings of JRJR in this, like the incredibly small head on that silver armored woman in the back. That looks like his... I don't know her name yet. Hasn't been revealed, has it? It's Arclight. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, crazy issue. Stan Lee presents Massacre, starring the Uncanny X-Men. A mile beneath Manhattan streets, in the shadowed secret tunnels, wherein the Morlock's dwelling begins. You go ahead. I'm going to start laughing.
All right, fine. Hi there. I'm Scalp Hunter. We're the Marauders. We kill mutants. Who's next?
Have you watched Once Upon a Time in the West, Chris?
No.
You got to watch that.
All right. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is his outfit made of guns?
Great question. I think his outfit is made out of pieces of things that can be added on to any kind of weapon. Do you remember in the Suicide Squad?
Yeah. That's right. What was that character's name?
Idris Elba's character.
Right.
Whatever his character's name was, doesn't really matter. She was a substitute for Deadshot.
Yes, he was.
And he kept adding pieces from his costume to
various weaponry.
I'm cool with if that's the same kind of thing with this.
Okay.
But imagine how loud and heavy that suit must be.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, not very streamlined. And it really chafes. Like around the groin, that's really uncomfortable. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, really good call.
Morlocks are outcasts from society. As they feel their being mutants brands them as outcasts from the human race. They live deep underground because they believe that here they're safe. What you talking about, man? There's some kind of ha-ha, hey?
Nope. I'm a serious man engaged in a serious business. And I never joke with people who are about to die.
Yeah, that does say whore, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, that's awful. Yeah. I'm trying to just see if I can figure out who the other mutants that are there are.
You mean without them?
The other Morlocks.
The Morlocks, yeah.
It's funny. It also is like a precursor.
And
yeah, you can give them all funny names, sure.
Exactly.
But it's not really fun to make jokes about the dead. Don't make jokes about people who are about to die. Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of skills and grace. Riptide by name. He spins so fast he becomes a blur. I did not remember that there was such a Rolling Stones homage there.
Right. That's what I thought when I read it first.
Oh, totally.
And
laughingly releases razor keen stars and spikes from outstretched hands to deadly effect. Blood sprays the room. Screams fill the air. And two little Falcone boys freak out because they're hearing about blood spraying. I mean, that is, again, like in like this sort of G comic.
I mean, it's also hard to explain to anybody, looking at this today, just how big ninja stars were in 1986. Like they were just everywhere. We loved ninja stars so much in 1986. And there's a villain that all he had was ninja stars and could throw them really fast. It's perfect, right?
Anthony, did you learn how to make them out of folded paper?
Oh, yeah, totally. My brother and I also made nunchucks out of taping up TV guides and then using plastic shower curtain rings. Yeah.
Did you ever take one of those across the chin?
Oh, 100%. So, it hurt, but it's still just a rolled up TV guide, right? So you're okay, So,
Anthony, what's a TV guide?
Yeah, exactly, right? This is where we're really... There was a magazine once upon a time that used to tell you everything that was on TV.
It's crazy to think that there wasn't a guide that came with, it wasn't channel whatever, or a special button on your cable package where you could see what was going to be on. There was, you would look through this magazine that everyone subscribed to, or stole someone else's, and then you would go through, a week ahead and plan what you're going to watch and when.
Yeah,
because of the descriptions.
I mean, on the flip side, probably everybody who remembers what a TV guide was should probably be checking their blood pressure regularly. So that's
good point. Thanks for the reminder. I'll book an appointment with my doctor for a complete checkup. Here we go. Toys can't hurt me none. I grab you. I break you. You got powers like us. Maybe you mutants. Why you do this?
It's our job, and we take pride in doing it very well.
Scrambler's touch instantly disrupts the Morlock's power. And without that invulnerability to protect him, jeez, man. But amidst the slaughter, a young woman dives for the wall, biting back tears at the pain of a wounded arm and back, the greater pain of loss, as acid, exuding like sweat from her pores, sears a path through solid stone. Who was that big guy?
Some kind of wrestler.
Yeah, I like his.
I do love like the Morlock outfit.
Singlet.
They're just so like, what are they wearing? I mean, obviously, not much, but it's hilarious.
Little shades of King Kong Bundy there.
King Kong.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, to connect, because we love to connect characters to all the different kinds of X media. Does Riptide show up as a name, as a character in First Class, as part of Magneto's villain crew?
I want to say, yeah. Isn't there a character that does that?
There's like a guy. He doesn't have many lines, but he has a name like that. Anyway, just throwing it.
Well, I do think you're right. And
Okay.
I'm going to let someone else look it up because
Yeah.
we're going to keep reading. Help! Callisto, help! Everyone, come quickly! Murder! Strangers in our tunnels! Hurry, please hurry! Or they'll kill all of us! Or kill us all! I've already forgotten who was who. I was Riptide.
That's Riptide.
Yeah.
That's Riptide.
They know we're here, Scalp Hunter.
Good. That means we won't have to hunt them down. Arclight, you handle the wall.
No problem.
Harpoon, the girl's yours.
She shall not escape.
Okay, so now we have another character, Arclight, from
Yep.
X3 Last Stand.
Okay.
Shows up as a character.
Arclight in X3.
Yes.
I actually don't remember who was who anymore.
She's got Misfits hair from the band The Misfits. It's like,
Okay.
oh,
Right. So
Yeah.
she was a fairly like androgynous, very live character. Is that fair to say?
sure.
Like she was very tall and thin.
Yeah, she hangs out with Callisto and Porcupine Boy.
And I feel like she had it was Callisto had also speed powers. She had
Yes,
super
Callisto
speed,
had
and they added that to her also mutant sensing ability in X3.
Right.
But I don't remember what Arclight's abilities were in the story or how they used them.
She had like a wave of light energy. She could blast her hands together, projectile type thing.
Okay, cool. And did you look up to see if I've already forgotten the name? Was it Whirlwind? I don't even remember.
Riptide.
I'm sorry. Riptide. Was Riptide in
I
X-Men
have
First
not looked
Class?
that up yet.
There was like a character who was spinning, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
he's like-
Come on.
Tidal guy. I don't know what his name is.
It must have been Riptide.
Must be.
The harpoon is metal in the Inuit's hand, transmuted to raw energy the instant he throws it. The young Morlock's life ends before her scream.
Sibel.
like,
Yeah, that's pretty intense, right?
it is, but also like that coloring blends like the idea of what's her molten sort of skin
Yeah.
and what could be the ground. So it looks like she just got charred and everything. It's really beautifully vague and gross. It's good.
I also this also kind of struck me a little bit was its indigenous character.
Yeah, but of course,
You know,
like the tokenism there with the character being
harpoon, the
called
use
Harpoon.
of the weapon of the but there aren't too many characters who we've come across, and this was
Like Scalp Hunter's First Nations, right? He's supposed to be Comanche, and
is he?
and then Scrambler, I think, is supposed to be Korean
right.
as well.
Yes, he
So
is.
like,
Yes.
I think a lot of the Marauders were, like taken from minority groups when they were developing the team.
So do you think this is, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure if there's any other, there's no purpose behind it. It's just maybe for some variety.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't sort of. This is one of those things where I haven't seen a big kind of like interview with Chris Claremont on what he was thinking of.
Right.
I think other writers have kind of delved a bit more into like the backstory for each of the Marauders and what they were
Sure.
and how they were, and then of course during the Inferno storyline, we got even more of the backstory of all of the Marauders. As well.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
If we were to just sort of switch this one out a little bit and think about the X-Men cartoon in the 90s, Chris, spoilers, man. I don't know how I'm going to get around this.
Ruin it.
Chris, do you know who is behind the Marauders already?
Can I wager a guess?
Okay, go ahead.
Is it Monsieur Sinestra?
Fair. Okay. So this idea that like when you're reading this now, reading it in real time, month to month, or in our case, week to week, it doesn't feel like that there is a larger plan. It feels like they are going on, a rampage, a massacre, and there isn't like maybe a puppet master that needs to be behind it. Like their agenda can be just extermination. And maybe there's more than one team, or maybe more than one unit. We don't really know yet. As a reader, when they did reveal to me like that there was a master puppeteer behind it all, it felt really forced to me. And I'm wondering about that creative process. If is Claremont writing month to month? Does he have a character planned out already and they're just moving toward it slowly, pulling the taffy, or is it just making it up as they kind of go along, Larry Hama style? And I don't know what the creation is with whoever this mastermind villain might be. But I do know in the cartoon, when they did a similar thing where there were characters hunting down mutants, they did not use the Marauders.
No.
Right? They didn't have this lethal group of characters. They had a really goofy group of characters instead.
Yeah. And I mean, Scalp Hunter in the comics, like they got rid of that like pretty racist name, right? Mm-hmm. Like so now, I think his name is I want to say like Grey Crow or something like that. It's because he recently was in like some of the Utopia storylines. So a lot of the characters that might have like a neat power set and interesting background, but there's certain elements of the characters that in today's day and age you just would not do this
for sure.
Greater understanding of diversity, and so some of those characters have kind of really been shifted and changed to kind of more kind of like flesh out the character and make them not just sort of token ideas.
Right. Murmur says, this was a bit too harsh for me at the time. I enjoyed horror movies, but mass murder and Marvel just did not mix well for me. Looking back, this was the beginning of the end for me and X-Men comics. I'm sad to hear that, but I do understand. Michael adds, Riptide is played by Alex Gonzalez in First Class. So there you go. And Allie knows about, I guess, any puppet mastery. She says, I do. Antarctica, baby. Matt says, yeah, I think it's his last name, and that's what he goes by now. I'm referring to who, Scalp Hunter? You called him Grey Crow? Yeah, okay. And David Cutler, hey man, long time no Exy boys. David, how are you? Hope you're doing well and had a really good weekend, and you're here for some good Exy times. Yeah, Massimo says, Grey Crow. There you go. Neat.
Sibel, to know who your chumps are, don't care either, but you're going to die for this. Do tell. You're Callisto, huh? Head honcho of the tribe of losers. Babe, you're mine. As for the rest, Vertigo, twist them inside out.
Radical Scalp, jeez, be my thrill. Suddenly, for the Morlocks, it's as if the ground has become fluid as water, wild as the ultimate roller coaster ride. Then Arclight makes things worse. Crack-thoom!
And then Gumby makes things worse.
Yeah.
Or not.
Poor Morlocks.
Yeah, poor Morlocks.
And then you get this really neat thing on the next page that I did not expect.
Yeah.
However, beyond a bend, beyond the reach of Vertigo's influence, Piper plays a wicked tune, drawing his pets from their hidey holes and hurling them into the fray.
By the way, that's awesome.
A flute playing Morlock with alligators and
100% playing a flute that is encouraging a bunch of sewer gators to attack these marauders. That is
and bats. Yeah,
bats.
I just always liked how many gators there were.
Right. There's a
Just
ton.
like so many.
You're just like when I turn this again. So Anthony, one thing you understand is I read every new issue. Like I have not read this run of X-Men. So many, I haven't read any of it. So it's always new for me. And so when I turned the page, and so I was like, this is fantastic. I'm going to see these gators get in on this. I'm like, this is what X-Men should be.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely a bit of a Chekhov's gator with those.
Chekhov's gator. The classic Chekhov gator.
Right? We don't quite see the payoff that we maybe would hope for it.
Yes. Meanwhile, an hour's drive north of the city, all is peaceful and serene at Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. A perfect afternoon for catching up on too long neglected chores. Like the Morlocks, the residents and students are mutants, consisting of a novice class whose co-leader, Danny Moonstar, is washing her stallion, Brightwind. Maybe you can say she's more than a stallion, or he is it a she? I don't know if Brightwind's he or she, but like it's more than a stallion, right?
Right.
And the senior team, the X-Men, led by this old man and his pitchfork. Not my favorite intro for Wolverine of all time.
No, led by old man Logan.
He looks like such a grumpy old farmer. Oh my gosh. And the senior team, the X-Men, by nature as well as choice, they're heroes. And they've the wounds to prove it. Need a hand, Colossus?
Thank you, Wolverine, but the Rogue and I are doing fine by ourselves. Sad, Sugar. You're supposed to be taking life easy. You've taken some pretty heavy hits lately. Even your body needs a decent chance to heal.
I'm fine, girl.
You ain't tough guy, and you're too honest to deny it.
I'm really loving Anthony, how at this stage and this version of Wolverine, his healing factor is not the Hugh Jackman heal from everything in a few frames of a movie. Like he's taken a while and they're accumulative, his wounds. So he's been really down the dumps for a long time, and I love it that there's a threat. Like he's it's not guaranteed that he's going to bounce back from things. Massimo casts Harry Dean Stanton as Logan. That's a good one, man. That's good. It's too funny. As Rogue's words, gleaming blades snapped from bionic housings implanted in Wolverine's forearms. These claws are forged of adamantium. Thanks, Claremont, we needed this again. The strongest metal known and can cut through anything. So he cuts the pitchfork. Like, what?
Yeah.
This, though, is a good example of, like, any comic could be somebody's first comic.
100%.
So every single issue, really, for, 30, almost 40 years of Marvel Comics had to be, Cyclops, I am jumping out of the way of your ruby quartz I-beams using my, you know what I mean? Like, there was always this way more exposition than we would ever use today.
Yeah, and I love that they become kind of rote after a while. Like, they use the same. How many times have we heard Claremont describe Wolverine's powers? Like, he can cut through metal like a hot knife through butter, or whatever, whatever those descriptions might be. I enjoy them every time, and when you have to read them over and over, it really emphasizes the repetition. But I don't mind it because, like you've made it clear, this was your first one. So, I remember my first time coming across Wolverine, I needed that too. I thought his claws, of course, were external and snap-on because of the toy from Secret Wars. So, I thought they were kind of a bionic external thing, like a weapon he could put on. His bones are laced with the same substance. They can't be broken. He's a born fighter, one of the deadliest men on Earth, and consequently, a rotten patient.
Inactivity is driving him buggy. He has recovered from worse injuries, far faster than this rook. There is something with him is very wrong.
Inside the kitchen, the youngest X-Man, Kitty Pryde, scrounges munchies.
This young lady is certain to ruin your appetite for dinner.
That assumes I'll have time for supper, which I won't. Mr. Headmaster Magneto, oh great and powerful master of magnetism, sir, because I've got term papers due. And since Professor Xavier's is school, if I don't produce any work, I flunk. Folks wouldn't like that. Nor would I. I'm running on empty. Then by all means refuel. Just don't make a habit of such behavior.
Before we go further, just curious as to maybe not to take an official poll, but to hear what everyone's take is. Do you guys think that Romita Jr. is on layouts maybe and Bret Blevins is like finishing some of these things in tighter pencils and then Al Williamson on inks? Because that Harry Dean Stanton Wolverine or Logan looks like a Bret Blevins face, but the layouts look like Romita Jr. layouts, and the proportions look like Romita Jr. as well. Like the one of Wolverine walking away toward the house is the other two talk about him. Like that's a Romita Jr. way of hunching and walking. But there are like little touches that remind me of Blevins along the way. So I'm wondering how this dynamic went, and I would love insight or just opinion from other people in the chat or you both, if you have any thoughts on what this penciling process was. If some pages are one guy, some pages are the other guy, or do you think they're actually getting their hands on both? I do not know.
I mean, I definitely think that Romita Jr. did layouts on the whole book.
Yeah.
And then it could just be because it's hard to know what the dynamic was, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is the question for the next time we see them all. But was it that like you said, Blevins did a little bit of early pencils and then Romita Jr. tightened them up, or Blevins also did mostly the backgrounds. Like it's hard to kind of know.
Sure.
For a lot of these, because there's like a lot of information in these panels.
Totally. And they do look like Romita layouts for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally sure the effectiveness and the purpose of showing that Magneto is a master of magnetism and therefore can tell that there's a case of Coke in Kitty's hands. I'm not, like the way that he's sort of, because it's kind of a word balloon, but it's not like it's a magnetism balloon. Like it's a very weird use of his powers. And I don't totally know if it sticks the landing for what they were going with this page.
Agreed. It almost looks like it's a word balloon or a thought balloon of him thinking about a six-pack.
Yeah, right. Like, and I that's not the purpose of it, but I don't think it quite. I mean, it's because it's obviously done to show his powers.
Yeah. Maybe like a pink glow, like do the whole, like the cans of Coke and like pink or magenta holding line or something to give them that glowy effect that it's powers as opposed to just white. I don't know. But there you go.
Dave has a lot more insight into this than we do.
Let's see. I don't see a lot of Blevins in the storytelling, but I also see a lot of compositional things that Romita wouldn't do. The near tangents in the final panel on the left page, for one. Rough layouts, maybe. So the near tangents in the final panel on the left page, for one. So we're talking about on the left page, final panel, where it's Colossus with Wolverine standing in front of him, and Rogue, where like Rogue's shirt is maybe going close to Colossus's shoulder, and that's what he's referring to. Those things could have been a little more thoughtful. David says also, I love Blevins, but this is early days for him. Rogue's torso, Logan's hat, yeah, and Colossus's armor, the tangents. I mean, yeah, I hear you. And you figure Williamson would have had a chance to fix that too, being the unbelievable veteran that he was, like 30-year veteran at this point.
What does Blevins go on to draw after this?
New Mutants.
New Mutants, okay.
But then he also like once Kubert left Ghost Rider, then Blevins went on Ghost Rider afterwards.
But that's the 90s, right?
Yeah. So but with each thing, he's picking up more and more sort of experience, and then he ends up doing Legends of the Dark Knight 50, and that is like one of his best issues.
Okay. I'll go see if I got that one.
Yeah.
I do remember he'll do a fill-in or two on X-Men as well. And at the time, he was not the kind of artist I was looking for as an X-Men reader, but that might be very different when I look at it again today. Or I mean, at this moment, like these days. If memory serves, he was also on New Mutants during their low turn after Sienkiewicz and after everything was sort of at its height. He's on for a period before Liefeld comes on. And that might have been one of the reasons that it was such a good book for Liefeld to bring some energy to and to refresh and to then, of course, rebrand. I don't know how big a role Blevins played setting it up for Liefeld's success by maybe having it be a weak title, but I don't know who else was, if there are any other creators that were on there before. But Louise Simonson is writing it that whole time. So I think it's Blevins who's on there before him. A couple things. Dan says, I love that compositional flow between the third and fourth panels on the right side. Logan smaller and walking away, transitioning into the back half of Kitty in the fridge. Genius. Yeah, that's a beautiful one. There's some good symmetry there. And David says, the New Mutants was where he came into his own for sure. He gets really influenced, I think, by the Image generation. I imagine as just about everyone working in mainstream comics did. He does bits of human business with his characters that nobody else was doing at the time. It had a lot of life. I'm interested now to see more of it, obviously. Dan says, I love that compositional flow. Oh, sorry, I got that one already. Pardon me, guys. He put it in there twice. So there you go. Hopefully I did that justice.
All right.
Now, okay. Let's keep going. Sorry.
Can't write a thesis on ethical philosophy and save the world simultaneously, sir. It'll be fun to try.
Using her phasing ability to literally walk on air, Shadowcat returns through walls, floors, and ceilings to her room, where her best friend and pet dragon await.
Food break.
About time. I'm starved. While the girls dig in, Wolverine makes his weary way across the back lawn from the stable. He isn't in the best of moods.
Surprise!
Nightcrawler. Cute elf. Nice stunt. Or are you trying to prove?
I can't read that first bullet.
He says, thought I was well enough to teleport.
Thought I was well enough to teleport.
You thought wrong, bub.
My error. With some pair, so bashed and battered were pretty much useless.
Yep.
What says then we drown our mutual sorrows in time-honored traditional manner?
Who's buying?
I love that. Like they go back to that occasionally. Like those two going out for drinks.
Yeah, it's the best.
That's great. Toss a court. Whoa!
Gripes. Something big, punching fast. I'm way off my mark. Should have heard coming.
Aid us, X-Men beg, implore to I for salvation. Strangers in the alley, they kill. Morlocks die. This is the mole person.
Yeah, the infirmary. Now, it is a little hard to tell who that is, and maybe we can brainstorm. Who is I guess it's a blonde woman in a lab coat, kind of, or we're going to look forward and see if we see this character again. So, no, there isn't Another scene, unless so it's not Storm. Clearly,
No.
it's not Magneto. I mean, you guys
Not
have
the
any?
other person who's getting introduced.
Yes, it is not.
Oh.
And they don't name them. Any guesses?
Then,
I mean, I think that this one is just sort of random medical person.
random
In the
medical
infirmary?
person. Magneto.
No,
ask
we're
for-
not referring to the purple hair. We're referring to the one speaking first in the infirmary. We can't tell who it is. I mean, if you just think about who's there, is it Rogue, perhaps? But that doesn't seem like a thing she'd be doing.
Don't know.
I don't know. I don't have any insights as to who it could be. Is it Kitty? No.
No.
Now, if they just change the coloring on the hair, it's a totally different character, right? Is it Moira McTaggart? You guys, we don't know. All right, I'll just read the voice and we'll just keep going. Multiple blade and gunshot wounds, massive internal trauma, pulverized bone. It's a miracle he reached us. Now, Chris, before we go further, this is important.
Okay.
Reading this next character, she's going to be around for a while.
Okay.
I'm just going to say, I'm losing a character. You're losing characters. Like, it's happening. Do you want me to do this one? And then you know what I mean? Like, should I just, okay.
Sure.
I'm just taking it. I'm just going to take
Do
her.
it.
All right?
Yeah.
And it's going to take me a while to find my rhythm because I haven't been rehearsing. So let's just go with it.
She's English, right?
Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Desperation breeds miracles, nurse. Her name is Betsy Braddock, called Psylocke, and she's a telepath. She's also a newcomer to Xavier's school, as yet unproven, unaccepted, as part of either team, which is why she hesitates fractionally before she speaks. In his dying memory, I saw a cadre of super beings, massacring every living thing in the Morlock tunnels.
No. The horrors of my childhood born again? Only this time mutants are the victims instead of Jews?
We involved Storm. I lead the Morlocks as well as the X-Men, Logan. Of course, we must go to their rescue. But Magneto, it would be best if you remained behind. As headmaster, your primary responsibility is to the school and the New Mutants. If something happens to us, if an attack comes here, they will need you.
I understand. Every fiber of my being shrieks for action. But I will not fail my students' trust again.
Kitty's roommate and best friend, as well as Colossus's little sister Ileana, teleports the team from the mansion to the alley, the giant tunnel running the length of Manhattan Island that is the heart of the Morlock's domain. I got Morlock sense close by. Better brace yourselves, though. This won't be pretty. Callisto! She is wounded, but she lives.
Stay by Storm, you two, while I search for more survivors. My cousin Kenny in Chicago works in a slaughterhouse. He took me on a tour once. It smelled like this.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, I knew some of these people. They were friends.
We better watch our step, Cat, or we'll end up the same. Watch it, everyone. Trouble. But even as the X-Men move, vertigo strikes. All yours, Rip. Cut 'em loose from life. Of these X-Men, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine have fought Vertigo before. Marvel Fanfare 3 and 4. As a result, they're better able to resist her attack.
I will shield the wounded. What's happening? Can't see, think straight. Yow! Stupid blades ain't hurting me none, but they're ruining my outfit.
I'm thinking that that's actually Rogue.
Oh, that's Rogue.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's supposed to be Rogue.
She's
Yeah.
saying ain't hurting me none, Kitty wins.
Yeah, just her costume's
You
miscolored.
just can't see her, though.
Right. So
Right?
she's miscolored, which is fine. But this is an example to me that that's not a Romita layout, that page. Or that Maybe not the whole page, but not that panel. That Colossus is not his Colossus. Look how large that head is compared to that body. Like that looks like a younger cartoonist.
In the reprints, they also recolor Rogue's clothes to be green, so you don't tell that it's her.
Okay.
And that white streak in her hair probably too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll reread it. What's happening?
Try my way, darling. Oh, sorry, Chris. Were you going to reread it?
Yeah, I was going to read it. Okay.
Go ahead.
What's happening? Can't see things. Straight. Yow. Stupid blades ain't hurting me none, but they're ruining my outfit.
Try my way, darling. Don't let him touch you. As Wolverine speaks, Nightcrawler teleports to where he figures he can do the most good. There's a lot that's happened in the back there. I got to catch up quickly. Dan Elvin says that Dark Knight, Legend of the Dark Knight 50 is on the wall of his LCS right now. So David wants to know, maybe he drew Betsy twice. And that might be why there were two characters in there like that. And maybe, again, I think it's just like a coloring error. Michael says, I think it is the nurse from the end of the Demon Bear saga in the New Mutants. There's a nurse in the Demon Bear? Cool. Dan says, I thought it was Betsy. And then Ali says, Betsy is distracting. I can see people drawing her multiple times. So you like Betsy. Okay. I think that's what that means.
Noted.
I like Betsy too.
You're very good at dishing out misery, Fraulein. Let's see how well you take it.
Careful, Elf. You may not be up to this. Stay close. Where we can cover you when you land. So do we agree now, like this whole 2-page spread, this is not Romita? Like this looks like Bret Blevins.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
That's definitely vertical. And very nearly me as well.
Nightcrawler! Riptide's got the drop on him. But Kurt hasn't realized it. Pour it out of there, now! Kurt Wagner has a split second to save himself. But his stunt with Vertigo pushed his body and power far beyond their limit. He tries to teleport, but nothing happens. And then it's too late. Kurt!
Oh, Storm, he's cut all over. There's so much blood.
I feel a pulse. We still have a chance to save him. Find me a cloth, something, anything to use as temporary bandages. Should have been faster. Should have made certain Riptide was KO'd. I've got the creep scent. He can run, but never hide.
Amen to that, chum.
Magic! Teleport the wounded home to the mansion. I'll take him right to the infirmary. Should I come back with reinforcements? No! This killing ground is no place for the New Mutants. Hurry, child. Those lives depend on you. I'm gone, Storm. Oh, here we go. Our school nurse, Sharon, can handle this on her own.
It's Sharon.
Sharon. Maybe I better corral Dr. McTaggart from Scotland as well. Good luck, X-Men. We won't be the ones who need it, kid. Your clothes are ruined, Rogue. Take my vest.
I'm obliged, Storm.
The risk is greater, but we can cover more territory if we separate. Our primary mission is to save Morlock lives. Afterwards, we will deal with the Marauders. Sharon.
I love how intense this issue is, by the way. I mean, Anthony at 9, you love this. I love this at 44. I'm like, this is just such a departure too from our sequential reading, right?
Well, and just of at the time, right? Like this also was the same era where we were getting like Mike Grell's Longbow Hunters, and there were just things that were happening around this time in comics that
Watchmen,
really
Dark Knight
had
Returns.
more of an edge.
Totally,
for sure, and not just happening in comics, but happening in mainstream comics that we had access to as kids. You know, David points out this really important thing. Sharon. The #1 character find of 1986.
Yeah, I feel Cutler, you and I have a Marvel Infinity pitch that we can work on now with Sharon the nurse.
I just picked up the new Sharon #1. Sharon. Is there anything she can't do?
Key issue, Sharon.
Elsewhere.
Howdy, folks. You're Annalie, ain't ya? Projecting empath. If you're using your power to frighten me off, wasted effort, rag bag. I don't scare easy.
Please, do what you like to me, but spare these children. They've done nothing.
They were born, that's enough. Wrong plea, old lady, to the wrong man. Didn't work months ago when I nailed a quartet of Moloch brats on the surface. Won't work now.
Sugar in the gas tank. Your ex-husband strikes again.
Ex-husband strikes again, sir. Oh, hey, Pally. Everywhere we look, Peter, we find nothing but bodies. Isn't anyone down here alive? Let us hope so, Katya. Let us pray. Are you all right? I'll never be all right again, but I won't quit. What's that, a gunshot? My job's done, sweetie. Your turn.
I thought this be a rougher assignment.
Be patient, Arclight. Our day's still young.
Scalp Hunter, hit the dirt.
Watch those rock shards, Ark. The shrapnel's deadly.
That's why we wear body armor, mister.
It will not save. Oh, go ahead. What?
Take a drink.
Take a drink, mister. It will not save you from Colossus murderers.
Won't have to. Colossus? Scalp, he's no Morlock. We're up against the X-Men. Hot dog. Some real competition.
I do love that bottom panel on the page on the left where it's just the Rock held up, where Colossus is just going to whip out their heads. Like
he was going for kill.
There's no warning. He's going straight for it, right? Like it's wonderful.
I think it's hard to tell. Like maybe this would have been one of those panels where a killer of a cartoonist could have, in that fourth panel on the first page there, had Colossus's body language where he looked like he was enraged.
Yeah.
Like he can't go from calm to murder. He has to already be on edge. Like they've set it up with the script that they're walking over bodies.
Yeah.
And that this is a killing field, right? They've put that out there, killing floor. Like that's out there. But I need to see that his head is lower, his shoulders, like his hackles are up, that he is just about to rip someone's head off their body, to believe that Colossus is about to throw a rock at two people from the back. But anyway, it's cool.
That's cool.
David asks for more jokes about Sharon.
Okay, Pally.
Thought there'd be more trouble. Ruski's history. You call him like Ruski or Rusky? What do you like? Rusky?
Rusky to me, but I mean,
But like, okay. Ruski's history. Along with anyone else in that tunnel section.
No! Colossus! Miss the big guy, honey. I can remedy that.
Who?
Huh? What are you, girl? A ghost? Worse. A shadow cat. You can't touch me, killer. You can't hurt me. Any more than you already have by slaughtering my friends. But I can hurt you. By the way, again, a panel, I mean, it's obviously Kitty's power set, but a gun to the head, pull the trigger, right, panel 4, blast right through someone's skull.
Yeah, it's super intense.
it's super intense.
I'm going to just criticize the art, just if you guys don't mind. It's
Sure.
basically 3 panels in a row with the same drawing, loosely speaking. Like, obviously not tracing or photostatting or anything like that, but we could use a different, like if you're going to do head to head with a barrel at your temple, like those are side by side, that's fine. Or even all 3 side by side, where it's like head, barrel to the head and then blowing through the head. But then that would need to be 3 in a row if you're going to do like that kind of cartooning. But taking up half the page almost like that, give us either different views or like all 4 pictures of her are the same view. And none are like the close-up's not that close up. You still see her shoulders. And the far away shot's not that far away. We don't even see her waist. Like there's not enough variety of Kitty on that page. But anyway, there I am being a critic. Sucks. Let's hurt him. Go.
Yeah. I can phase you into the ground and let you go. You'd be maimed or, if you're lucky, dead.
Do it.
Teammate comes first. Then it'll be your turn. Who am I kidding? Talking nasty is easy. I just pretend I'm Wolverine, but it's just pretend. They deserve killing, but I can't do it. Does that make me a coward? Life is so wonderful, so precious. Why should anybody want to end it? Spare these two. They'll kill again. I know that. Killing them first is right. It's justifiable. I can't.
Elsewhere, the other X-Men lead a pitifully small band of Morlock survivors toward the tunnel connecting their domain with the X-Men's estate, 40 miles away. We're moving too slowly, boss. All these Morlocks are wounded, Wolverine. Some cannot travel any faster. Is the way clear? Seems to be. Lots of familiar scents all of a sudden. What the devil are they doing down here? And one of them. This is crazy. I'm crazy. It can't be. Flatten. Optic blast? Yep. Sense its pressure wave a split second before the beam itself. Cyclops? An Angel. And the Beast. All the original X-Men. Here? Now? Why? How about we ask them? Do you have a sense? Is that Storm talking?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So much for that idea. Explosion blocked the tunnel between us and Cyclops out. It feels like Wolverine.
That's Wolverine, yeah.
So much for that. Good writing, man.
Yeah.
Good character voicing, right? Like you can feel which character it is.
Mm-hmm.
So much for that idea. Explosion blocked the tunnel between us and Cyclops' outfit. Is that Arclight? This is her style.
She's not the only powerhouse present, Rogue. Oh, that's Rogue. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm okay, Storm, and these 2 kids aren't badly hurt. Annalie shielded them with her own body. We left 3 behind, though. They weren't so lucky. Neither was Annalie.
Cal, Scalp Hunter. He was one who murdered my babies. In X-Men 193.
Mm-hmm.
Said so. Boasted. How could anybody be so...
To some, dear old duffer, that comes naturally. Duffer?
Yeah.
Okay, is that a term of endearment?
In this case.
Okay.
Truer words, my dear disfigured darling, were never spoke.
Marauders! Wolverine is our deadliest foe. Harpoon, send him to join his ancestors.
Been tried before, chump. Ain't that easy. Even as Harpoon's sleigh spear strikes, Wolverine's claws draw blood. Both men fall. Only one screams. Neither dies. But that can quickly change.
My touch will neutralize your weather powers, Wind Witch.
A pity, Scrambler. I have none.
You think you're tough, huh, fella? A real hot number. King of the mountain, prove it!
Callisto breaks ribs as Storm did his jaw, and Scrambler spits teeth, coughs blood. Was I riptide?
Yes.
Who knows? We got to write this down. Poor boy needs a rescue. Coming right up, sweetheart. Stars and spikes hum through the air, followed by screams. Many are hit. Too many die. Riptide laughs.
You gotta wonder how many ninja stars he has.
A lot. He goes to Walmart.
He does.
Costco.
He buys in bulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My issue here, these 2 pages are printed so off their like alignment that they look like they're from different books almost. Like it's about a not half an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch difference between left page and right page on mine. There you go.
They do not care. This is sport to them, a game. I am the least vulnerable to their powers and weapons. I must be the wall that stands between them and my comrades. By the white wolf, as if I am on fire inside. Hang on, big guy. I'll hit those marauder bozos with Scrambler. So his powerful What? No!
Unfortunately, the Korean youth touches Rogue first. Their mutant abilities are similar. He disrupts powers, she steals them. In this fateful moment of contact, they both neutralize each other. Mass says, I Googled it. Duffer is not a term of endearment.
Should I Google it? To tell me.
Would you like to?
Would you like to?
Harpoon takes immediate advantage of Rogue's sudden invulnerability. Shadowcat's reaction is as instinctive as it is unselfish. As the spear strikes, she tackles and phases Rogue, praying that Harpoon's murderous energy blast will pass harmlessly through their ghost-like forms. A nice idea. The bravest of tries. Hearing Kitty's screams, Colossus lunges for Harpoon, but Riptide blocks his way. Since you care so much about the baby brat, how about I send you to paradise with her? Hurricane winds, you see, can punch a straw through a solid oak. And I can spin way faster than that. I figure, my robust Russian friend, that my speed and my blades can cut even you down to size.
We are not friends, Riptide.
More screams from those struck by the spikes and stars that missed Colossus. Sounds that, like Riptide's laughter, will haunt Peter Rasputin's memories.
And you are wrong. Harpoon, make peace with your gods, little man. You are next.
Yeah, I want that comic.
Holy crap.
Okay. Yeah, like this page is burned in my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like the choices of it and like the expression on Colossus's face and the fear in Riptide's eyes, right? And well, we're about to get to it, but like this is the first time that Colossus has ever killed anyone.
Right.
Like just so like on purpose, feels like he has no choice. And that's kind of like a bit of a theme, right, that we've seen sort of throughout the issue, that we'll see throughout the story, right? Like the villains are literally committing genocide and the X-Men are trying to stop it, but the X-Men are like just at a real low point, right? Like they've been battered by the events of the previous 3 years. They've, Cyclops has left the team. They've made it through all of the Dark Phoenix stuff. And, like Wolverine can't heal as fast. His mutant like senses don't work as well. Nightcrawler can't teleport as far. Like everybody just did, like Storm has no powers, right? Like everybody is just at like this like base point. And the strongest person that they basically have on the team right now is Magneto, and they figure out a relatively plausible way for him to not show up right now, because essentially, it would be a bit of a MacGuffin, right? Or a bit of like a Deus Ex Machina if he just shows up and crushes all the Marauders into a little tube.
Yeah. All those throwing stars, just reverse.
Right? Like, so
everyone's weapons. Just
all of Scalp Hunter, all of him.
Yeah, and Harpoon, everybody.
Yeah, right. But it just pushes, the entire issue pushes to this one page and really this one panel where Riptide's neck is snapped, because the whole idea that everybody's wrestling with is it okay to kill? When is it okay to kill versus when it's not okay to kill, right? Like Kitty has a monologue about it. The monologue is so big in a thought bubble that basically the script must have said, draw a pile of garbage for like, 3/4 of the panel so I can fit it all in. And the general point of the thesis is that, well, yes, sometimes killing is justified, right? And again, that idea for a hero is relatively revolutionary in 1986.
Yeah. They have been building this theme. I mean, if we were to imagine that it was like an intentional thing, which it could be, something that Claremont was either returning to over and over as a central question. I don't know if he ever intended on moving along that question, to a conclusion. This clearly is a conclusion of that. Like it like you said, it all kind of builds to almost the sweetest, most innocent member of the team. Like Colossus has always been the boy giant in a way that he wouldn't hurt a fly, right? He's the artist who would rather sit and paint or draw than he would actually be. He doesn't have a love for action, especially the way that Storm at this point does. Wolverine thirsts for it. Nightcrawler has always been that swashbuckler who loves at least some acrobatic fun. Rogue has never been shying away from a scrap. Kitty is now at this point like a trained ninja and more than happy to be active. Colossus has never had a love of violence, and even to the point where like Wolverine and other issues has had to coerce him into having a fight to kind of have a cathartic experience. And they've had many stories where they have questioned Wolverine about the difference between murder and killing. So much so where stuff with Rachel in the last few issues where he goes to prevent her from murder and he will kill to stop her. So it's been this absolutely like very clear ongoing narrative. And sort of to have Colossus have his murder card, so to speak, have his cherry popped, like his first kill. It feels like a fall from innocence in a way, or loss of innocence for kind of the whole book or the whole team in a way. Once he kills, like, there you go. It's her too. I need to see Kitty kill somebody for it to be truly encapsulated, because she is the innocence of the team more so than him, I think. But I'd love to hear your take.
It's interesting, I'd say too, that like the last, I don't know, maybe the last 10 episodes or 15 or whatever it is, we've seen this like Colossus pushed to the background. There's been no real stories with him. Claremont doesn't seem to know what to do with him, or he just kind of shows up, he's there, doesn't really have anything that is about him or any kind of real storylines. No real growth. Perhaps he's hit his arc. And then a couple of issues ago, he comes back, and maybe it's last year, I can't remember. And he gets on his old costume, which you see here, right? Because and then he's like, "Oh, I found this, and the other one's damaged. So I'm going to wear this." You're like, "Oh, we were both like, it's so great to see Colossus back in this costume that we love of him, this original costume." And then to see him lead to this, I think you're right. If we had seen, when he almost throw that piece of cement and does it without giving any kind of heads up, like we need to see that body language evolve. But this is the moment that Claremont. I mean, it's funny. Like that's like the great riddle of the Sphinx. Like, does Claremont plan these things out? How far in advance, or is he just thinking next issue or whatever? But like, we now get this moment with Colossus. We have had no moments with Colossus for a good chunk of time. We can't remember the last one, and so now it's this loss of innocence in the face of genocide. And just like all of it, the writing, make peace with your gods. You are like, can you imagine if you are Harpoon, you've already taken a claw, but you're still in the fight, and this dude looks at you with with shuriken ninja stars coming out of his body, right? And he's just it's wow. It is the darkest maybe moment we've seen of a character, and that includes Wolverine, right? In this X-Men run.
Sure.
It's something. It's something.
Agreed. David brings up an interesting point. He asks if Colossus is the one who kills Proteus.
Oh.
Yeah, he lays the final blow, and I'm looking at those pages now. So, like Proteus is kind of going out of control, is destroying everybody, and he does it with some rage and some intensity. He's like, I hear you, Butcher.
Right.
Inside my mind, laughing. You enjoy causing pain, death. Before I met you, I never understood evil. You are evil, Proteus. And eventually he transforms into Colossus from flesh and punches right through. Like, the mistake will be your last. And then afterward, Wolverine's like, I'm proud of you, Petey. I couldn't ace that sucker better myself. Like, clanks on his armor. Thank you, Wolverine. So he does, but it's like a happy murder.
Right.
Happy murder.
Well,
if I literally, okay, I'm just going to show you the aftermath of that murder. Okay.
Yeah.
Right there. Look at Petey and Wolverine.
That's right.
Thank you, Wolverine. That's a happy murder right there. All is good, but he does. So I wonder if that is the difference kind of between maybe it's a tonal difference.
Maybe.
But also the idea that it's his first murder, that's just Anthony talking. So it is possible that that's a narrative that you have in your mind that is like thematically kind of true, but factually, maybe if we were to get nitpicky in a fair and okay way, I guess
if we're talking about it, right? Like, so in the battle with Proteus, right? Where Colossus is fighting him, does he feel that is it his intent to kill, and does he have no real other choice? Whereas I think in this page, it's pretty clear that he has an intent to kill, but he does have another choice.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. So one is like the only option, and this one, I mean, to grab the guy by the neck and break him is, I mean, you can choke him out and not have him die.
Right.
There's a lot of, obviously we can go and rewrite this all we want. I think this is he's seeing red.
Yeah.
And get it? He's communist. Get it? Okay.
Nice.
No, it wasn't.
And as you mentioned, though, like the fact that it's Colossus is important too.
Yeah.
Right? Like if Wolverine had, just killed Riptide, it would have zero impact, right?
Well, it would be cool. Let's finish this and then come back and talk more. There's also some things in the chat to get into, but let's finish the read because there's a lot on this page.
Yeah.
I also love the way the stars are embedded in his chest.
That's what I mean. It's next level.
Where is he?
Gone. Scramble with him. Appears the fight's over.
Peter killed Riptide. And those two hadn't been rabbited, he'd have done the same to them. It's what they deserve. But killing's my job. Or Wolvie's. Peter was made for gentler things.
Yeah, so I mean, they're spelling it out for us, right?
Yeah.
Kitty, are you merciful goddess?
No. I can't unphase. I'm concentrating as hard as I can, but nothing's happening. I can't solidify my body. This is my fault. Kitty got hurt saving me. Oh, Sugar, I'm so sorry.
If the X-Men must fall, Rogue, let it be while saving lives.
I'm through taking lumps, Storm. I mean to dish some out.
Vengeance can wait. Look around you. If we pursue the marauders, most of our own wounded will die. Is that what you want? Right thing to say, boss. Too bad that won't help. I understand Rogue's anger, Logan. If she only knew how pale it is beside my own. Price of leadership is doing what's necessary, not what you want. My leadership has led us to a bitter defeat. Happens, even to the best. I do not like to lose. Me neither, darling. But it's the war that counts, not a single battle. Cold comfort, my friend. I want you to stay behind here in these tunnels. We know nothing of the marauders. I require a prisoner for interrogation. No problem. What about the rest? One prisoner is sufficient. The remaining marauders are yours.
Jeez.
Fuck yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like again, Wolverine Unleashed, like just go do what you got to do.
Is that what we're leading up to? Like him hunting through the tunnels for marauders?
You're going to have to wait, Chris, till next Tuesday to find out, my friend, unless you want to break your own code of reading ahead.
No.
So because we're also like you're only planning on reading the X-Men, like the Uncanny X-Men issues, right? You're not reading the X Factor ones and the Thor ones. Like, are you reading all of this or?
Correct. We are just reading the X-Men issues. If for some reason we are,
let's just spoil it now.
We need to get another one. Yeah. We don't have the PDFs, but if I have to track down an issue and throw it on a camera,
I mean,
it's not the end of the world to flip through.
So like while all of this is going on with the X-Men, X Factor and the tunnels too, and they hint at it, right? But it's a really weird way to hint at it, like not showing them, but showing just like the optic blast. But essentially, X Factor is following up on this from their side. And what happens is this is where Angel is captured by the Marauders. His wings are damaged.
Harpoon, right?
Yeah, so Blockbuster knocks him out and Harpoon pins him to a wall, and Thor comes along and saves him. And so that's why the Thor issues are there. But what happens in the aftermath is that Angel's wings can't heal and they turn gangrenous and have to be amputated. Right. And that leads to him going to like Apocalypse, like turning him into death. Like it's everything. Like this is one of the big ripple effects from the Mutant Massacre, right? Later on, like Kitty stays in this ghost phase until Reed Richards and Dr. Doom have to figure out how to reverse it because she's slowly dying as well while she can't unphase. Like she's breaking down at a molecular level. So again, really, really interesting part, right? And your next issue that you're getting to is like has like a pretty epic color. I'm not gonna spoil it because that's the but it sets up a lot of stuff and it hints at it in a couple interesting ways too. In this like going back and seeing it once you've read the whole thing, you're like, wow, that's pretty wild, right?
Yeah. X-Men Essentials, Volume 6. If you don't have this one, this has X Factor 9 right in it, and I'm assuming it has X Factor 10. So I know I have flipped through these recently, but I think I will reread them, maybe even tonight, just to get that vibe. And yeah, look at that one, right? Yeah. And that's a Walt Simonson drawing, and I think he does the interiors too in that issue.
I think
yes,
so.
He does. It's Louise writing and him pencils and Bob Wyacek inking. So I guess the whole Mutant Massacre is in not only like all the omnibus, of course, but it's just even if you're looking for these ones, which I highly value as well. They're very affordable, not always easy to find, but totally worth it in terms of it showcasing the artwork and being really concise for the storytelling too. And they're affordable. The New Mutants is here. New Mutants 46 is in this, which is that issue in question. Yeah. And it is a Barry Windsor Smith cover. And Jackson Geiss, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is pencils. Kyle Baker on inks, which I did not expect. So that might be really nice to look at. Baker's a really interesting artist. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go through this, man. This is insane. The Thor issue, unfortunately, is I don't like Sal Buscema compared to Walt Simonson, but that's an amazing Walt Simonson cover, and then Sal Buscema art on the inside. But yeah, it's all here.
So, and the Daredevil story. So in theory, so it came out the same time like as the other ones, but in theory, it's supposed to take place after Uncanny 213.
Right.
So I think maybe that's why they didn't originally include it in that breakdown, but it did get included in everything else afterwards, right?
Like the omnibus.
Yeah. And then like they play with this idea later, right? Like Inferno later on, which you'll get to in 30 issues or so, right? Like that breaks into all the different ones.
Right.
Is Angel being pinned?
Yeah. But then they come up with the idea of, oh, well, if something is so big that's going on, what if like every hero in New York has to deal with it, right? And that's why you had, Spider-Man fighting demons in the subway, like
Right.
later on. It's so they're really using these big X-Men crossovers in bigger and bigger ways to set up, huge events to get everybody really interested. They have this I think that like people were obviously, oh, I'm a Spider-Man fan, so I'm going to buy the 3 Spidey books that are out, right? But eventually, Marvel Team Up, they canceled, they replaced it with Web, right? Whereas I think, and even to this day, X fans are like, put every X book on my pull list. So they have, and I think this is some of the reason why this got started in that way, right? You're like, oh, well, maybe now that I've purchased this crossover, oh, New Mutant seems interesting, I'll check it out. Oh, X Factor seems interesting, I'll check it out, right? And that I think was kind of the main plan for how this all broke down. But this was, yeah, just totally incredible. I don't think I even read all of the parts to it at the time. Like I read them later on about stuff, and I kind of had an understanding of what was happening. But just epic like storytelling. Like there's certain things which now you look back at and you're like, oh, okay, well, we would not, use dialogue in that way anymore, right? We would not have so much exposition, right? Like we tend to, kind of rely on the fact that these characters have decades more of history that people are kind of familiar with. And some of the points being made are a tiny bit too on the nose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try to add a bit more mystery to it. But again, right, like, so your first time seeing this, that second last page hit you in the face just like it did to us, like more than 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go through some comments here, and then there's lots more to touch on. David Cutler. Sharon is the white woman who was turned into an indigenous person via magic at the end of the Demon Bear. Dear Lord. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm new to this character, but I do want to know more about Sharon. Yeah, that's and then there's lots of comments about, how intense that ending was, for sure. Dan Alvin talks about, in reference to the happy times of Colossus killing Proteus, he makes reference to being a Cockrum sort of has a warm and happy style. It was John Byrne on art, but yes, in that Cockrum general ballpark, for sure. He says, I love how clothes are still portrayed realistically in the Copper Age and earlier. They remain damaged and tattered after heavy combat. Changing is seen often for different settings. Yeah, definitely. And Cutler continues, we have to be getting close to the final time Storm was depicted as having cat eyes. I don't know. We'll have to keep reading and find out. Dan Alvin says, this is the best run ever. Yeah, maybe. Some people say this is the end of the run. We have another friend who was like out by like 199 or 200, didn't like it, but people have their own jumping on and jumping off points. I find that just hearing from so many people and talking to X-Men with so many people over the last few years, it seems to be that whatever version it is when you come on, once that version starts to fade out, one's interest begins to wane, or the next version of them wins you over. Like for me, for instance, I like the Band of Misfits kind of on the run. Like I like that version of them where they're kind of never safe and they're outcasts and not considered heroes by the general public, and they kind of don't know what they're doing half the time, as opposed to a strike force, like a highly organized strike force. I like them being on their back foot, but that's because that's what they were when I was reading them. Even though I was reading 2 time periods simultaneously, I was reading classic X-Men, so like early Claremont and this version simultaneously. So I got both, and one felt like a heyday, and one felt like them, like you said, kind of all over the place and not at their best, but for story reasons. Like where we're at with 211, it's like they're not in good shape, and they wish they were in their heyday where it was so simple as, okay, this month let's just fight Magneto, and next month let's fight Sauron. Like that's so much easier. It would be crazy having to wait a month to find out what happens next. So it would be tons of fun. I gotta say, like, if you can check out the other issues, like even Power Pack, I just think through now, there's a moment, guys, where, and he hasn't been revealed as being part of this, but okay, here's the spoiler, because I don't know if it comes up before we get to the next issue of X-Men. As Wolverine is going through the tunnels, other stuff is happening, obviously, for other characters. But Sabretooth is part of the Marauders. And he is not the Sabretooth that, we know from the cartoon. You have to kind of go back in time, and he was not a classic X-Men villain yet. We've been reading X-Men since Giant Size 1. He has not made a single appearance in X-Men. So he is not an X-Men character as of yet. We know he's going to fight Daredevil in that other book and Daredevil series. But the kids in Power Pack get, in their issue 27, they get a projection. There's one of the Morlocks who can project his things onto, like, send a dream, project his like thoughts of others in his dream to other places. Named Artie, I think, is who that is. So he kind of sends a visual message to the kids in Power Pack, who then come into the sewer. These 4 children, and while they're in the sewer, they see that stuff's going on, and then a feral predator comes down from the pipes above. They're like, Mr. Logan, oh my God. And it's not Logan. It's fucking Sabretooth. And I'm reading it being like, because he's going to gut these 4 children. And that idea of like, I love those moments in movies where the innocent characters mistake. I mean, it was the same, I guess, when Mary Jane thinks Peter Parker is coming in the window and it's Eddie Brock the first time. Chris, I don't think you've read that stuff, but that was like the intro to Venom, is that she sees the black suit come back into her apartment and thinks, oh, Petey's back. And so she's vulnerable as can be. And it's rapist Venom who comes in. And it's unspoken, but he assaults her like 100%. That's what happened there. Because when Peter gets back, she is in physical and emotional tatters. But seeing this moment where like it's Sabretooth who shows up against Power Pack, and they have to scramble, and eventually Wolverine gets there. John Bogdanov on art, who's awesome, really kind of exaggerated and cartoony, but there is so much fun stuff that's happening here, and it feels like the stakes are high.
See, my question is, with all this carnage going on, where's America's #1 superhero team, Freedom Force, helping out? Don't you want to see the Blob and Pyro, those guys, go up against the Marauders? I would, 100%. I want to watch that. I read that comic.
Yeah, I want to see. Okay, I got to pull up the next issue to show you the cover. Have you even seen the cover, Chris, the next issue?
I have not.
Okay, hold on. This is some heavy lifting. I got my box underneath. Oh, yeah, here we go. Ooh. This is 212.
So what does it say on it?
Wolverine versus Sabretooth round 1. This is like the first time they fought.
Yeah. Well, not the first time they fought. The first time that the reader gets to see that they fought.
Well,
right?
let's. I'm having trouble as an aging reader buying into retconning, and so at this moment in time, there is no history between them.
Yes, there is, because if you go back to this issue we just read, 211, where Wolverine has that scent and he's like, oh, but who is that? It can't be. And then the optic blast hits, right?
That's Jean. He smells Jean.
He smells Sabretooth, because Sabretooth has already been in the X-Force issues too.
No, when you say
Oh,
X-Force, you mean
the
X-Factor.
X-Factor issues, yeah.
But he doesn't
Right.
have a history with him yet.
With
It's all
Sabretooth, he
retcon.
does. No.
You think
That's how
that,
they're legit.
that
Legit,
in
yeah.
this moment in
Yeah.
time, Claremont says that these two have a history already?
100%.
It wasn't like I
Yeah.
always, as a kid reader, okay, again, we're all going to have, whatever, it's fine. And I'm happy to be wrong. I'll just tell you my perception as a reader, as a kid, was that everyone, including myself, we were so excited by the idea of there being an anti-Wolverine.
Yeah.
A counterpoint for him. This was his first, as a little kid reader, this was his first arch villain that felt like, oh, they were going to rip each other's guts out.
A dark mirror, a real dark mirror character.
A dark mirror, thank you. That it just snowballs after that. That like everything becomes Wolverine Sabretooth every time there's an opportunity. And as a kid, I thought that they just wanted to fan the flames and then continue those backup stories in classic X-Men to create a history. But the core of me still believes that is an opportunity as opposed to an intention. But that's not how you read it.
No, well, but like I think that what you're splitting hairs a little bit in terms of the difference between opportunity and intention, in the sense that like anything that's there that somebody could pick up as a thread, even if it's the same writer doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because essentially what you're saying is, well, if Chris Claremont never thought about it, then it never can happen. Well, okay, but like, when they first created Daredevil, he wasn't a ninja, and nobody's ever like, this is BS. Daredevil's not a ninja, right? Like nobody ever says that, right?
Somebody might have, but they're wrong.
Because so like that
worked.
So like that retconning and changing and flipping things around, that part's okay, right? So when the retcon happens and you're okay with it, then it's fine. When the retcon happens and you're like, oh, I don't know if I dig this, then you're like, I don't necessarily like retcons, right? So like we play a little bit of fast and loose with how we're okay with these things. And I think that what we see is that there's always been just enough breadcrumbs that the Sabretooth being a long-standing villain of Wolverine is a pretty plausible one, right? Whether or not you feel that he's been this centuries-old tormentor and like blah, and then he also is connected pseudo-familially, and then he also is part of like a group of metahumans that are descended from wolves, whether or not you have all of those series of retcons, there's certain things, but the more and more that we delve into a universe that has 85 years of history, the more what you see as the universe expands out, and sort of like almost like if we think of Fantastic Four 1 being the Big Bang, right, and everything else that spreads out from that is then everything else that happens. Essentially, any new story that happens is almost a what if story, right? Like, what if Peter Parker was a billionaire like Iron Man? They did that. What if Jane Foster were Thor? Literally a what if issue that became a real issue, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, the concept of what if Sabretooth had always been Wolverine's like arch nemesis and they'd gone back decades, that to me is way less of a what if stretch than some of the even more famous and well-loved stories that come after that.
Yes to all of that. So I don't mean to characterize my take as being that I don't buy into the retcon. I just call it, as I see it, as being a retcon.
You just don't like it.
No, I have no problem with it at all. Like you alluded or that you described the version, I forgot who the writer was now, Jeff Loeb, who had him the two of them as being the two different species of like blonde wolf and dark wolf. Was it Jeff Loeb and
that I can't specifically remember,
Simone,
but it was around, the
Bianacci, I can't remember
the Romulus thing in the storyline,
right? So it was something, like that goes too far for me to even continue reading it. Like I'm like, done. But the idea that they have a history, I'm all for it. But to say that this isn't the first time they fight because someone wrote later that it happened before. It's their first fight. Like, they haven't fought before in a comic in publication history.
Yeah,
Is that fair?
like that's fair. And for the reader, it's the first time they got to see them fight.
That's what I was trying to say. It's the first time we get to see. I'm okay with them having history. It's totally fine. Since we've opened this, I've never liked the idea that they're brothers in the movie, like that. Jimmy and Victor, the two Howlett boys running away after Logan kills his parents, like them on the run. I never bought into the Wolverine X-Men Origins. I never liked that version of it. But them having like 100-year-old grudge that Logan at this point doesn't remember most of it. Yeah, I'm cool with that. That's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I found it fun also how they just exaggerate Sabretooth. Like, he starts off being, in his first appearance against Iron Fist, was it like Iron Fist 15 or something like that?
14.
Yeah. He's not an oversized character. He's big, but like by the time Jim Lee gets him and the cartoon gets him,
that was the surprise for me. Again, not knowing the publication history, being really too familiar with the source material, was the Sabretooth that I knew was the 90s cartoon Sabretooth, right? Just hulking. And then when I saw when I finally got my hands on this issue as part of, I was collecting this Nascenti Daredevil run, I was like, oh, I mean, he's kind of comes off as feral for sure. Got that as part of it, but size wise comparable to Daredevil, a person who has muscles, but not a giant of a thing. Yeah.
Well, and like just before the a couple years before that like kind of Jim Lee redesign, he's like kind of one of the main villain reveals in the Amazing Spider-Man assassination plot stories, and so for like the cover, he's drawn by McFarlane, but the interior of that issue is drawn by Eric Larson, and that is a very feral Wolverine. Right, with like really, a very feral Sabretooth with like really long claws and a crazy mane and like all sorts of stuff, right? So like
how perfectly image of it, right? That
like really kind of and then the Jim Lee, but like those Jim Lee redesigns of all those characters are so strong, right? Like they just last. Like decades and decades later. Like they like the entire animated series used them, and now they're back again, and we're getting more toys now out of that character design than we had when the show was on.
I don't know, man. If you look at in terms of quantity, the Toy Biz days, there are so many figures that came out really, really quick. But there are tons of figures coming out now. It is amazing also but it's to say, maybe, Anthony, like, it's hard to say what thing causes the other. Like, does Jim Lee's designs cause the animated series to be good looking, or is whatever got onto the animated series, it would have worked whether it was different designs? Like, could have been any costume and everyone would have bought in because it was the portrayal of the characters, the voicing, the pace, the music, the theme song. Like, if Wolverine didn't have, I mean, his was a throwback design, but like if Cyclops had the John Byrne costume, or that, I should say, whoever made it, like Don Heck or whoever made that original one, would that have still been a good Cyclops? I don't know. So I will argue Rogue definitely got a good upgrade, like a solid one that I don't think we can ever go back. We can't go backward with Rogue, but
the Cyclops one's a good upgrade.
I like it's I've said this so many times around Chris. I like everything about it except if your characters are all called X-Men, you don't put a Y on a person's chest. That just it just doesn't work.
Yeah, but the X is right there.
So is the Y. It's so silly to have a Y bandolier. Like, give him an X bandolier. It wouldn't have hurt. I mean, having a Y makes no sense at all. Why don't they have give someone a Z? Give someone else just a giant O, which they do sometimes.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
So when you get to that sort of Mirror Island Saga split into 2 issues thing, then are you going to start doing like the X-Men issues and the Uncanny, or are you only sticking with Uncanny?
We've never committed to how this is going to go when we get near the end.
Okay.
It might be that we stop when Claremont stops.
That still gets you 3 issues in, though.
Oh, God.
Right? Like, it still gets you 3 issues in.
Well,
right?
One could make a case.
Before, right?
One could make a case that he's no longer writing; he's just scripting. At that point,
I mean, one could make it. I mean, yeah, I guess, but
I'm interested to know, truthfully, if organically, as we read, if we can feel when the shift happens. There are a few credit changes that are going to happen, and I won't say what issue, but there will be an editor shift where Innocenti is out, and there's no longer a partner. In the way you listened to those and watched those interviews with Claremont and Simonson and Innocenti and how they talk about the X Office? I think it's called Claremont's X-Men. They talk about it in a very collaborative way, that like Chris is the wild thinker, and it was originally Louise Simonson's job, and then on to Innocenti to just kind of rein him in and get him producing this crazy idea on this monthly structured way. But let his imagination go, and they would banter with him about which characters are going to have what kind of arc, and it would just be a collaborative and fun experience. There's a moment where they've removed all of his allies from the X Office. They've taken titles away from him, and he doesn't have control over any of the other characters except for kind of his main book. And a new editor comes in, and I wonder if like that's when he starts to have the fight, and then as new artists come on, the power shift happens. And when the balance of power shifts from being, is it Claremont's book to Jim Lee's book? If we start to see him going through the motions as opposed to putting his heart into the characters, because he really loves these characters. He calls them by first name. He thinks of them as real. I'm wondering if we're going to feel it, or if it's just going to be totally gradual. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's also interesting then to sort of read Claremont's return to the X-Men as well, right? Because he comes back to Uncanny again afterwards, and with like the Neo and all of that, right? And that's a very sort of different run. So I mean, I think that like, but also like, but by that point in sort of Marvel history, right? Like, and again, a lot of this is just very well documented, right? Like, you know, the company was going through bankruptcy, was going through restructuring at that time in the 90s, right? Image is starting to form. Like, there's so many things going on while all these stories go on that it's funny. So like, you know, David just mentioned that he's a 90s kid, right? And like, I was, you know, 14 when Spawn #1 came out. So I am the exact perfect demographic, and I thought it was amazing, and I still think it's amazing. Like, I read this, I'm just like, you know, sometimes when we kind of look back, right, the stuff that we were first introduced to when we were 12, 13, 14, that kind of imprints on us, right? So the people who were like 12 when like the Hellfire Club issues were like the hot stuff, right? Like Wolverine in the sewer kind of thing, right? Like, they're like, this is amazing. This is the greatest thing ever. We'll never see anything as good as this. And then as things change, and, you know, like if you were in university when Image hit, you probably, and you like comics before, you probably didn't like Image comics.
Sure.
Like, you probably were like, Youngblood isn't for me. Wildcats isn't for me, right? Oh, but it was all for me. I was like, give me this with a spoon. This stuff is crazy. These are big, crazy characters. And we saw a ripple effect with that type of storytelling. And then what we ended up getting was like more grounded stuff, but still big ideas and big, bold stuff. And like, it's all this like super unique kind of like ripple effect history thing that I see. And now that, you know, people like me are almost 50, I think the 90s gets a lot more love now than it did for a number of decades, because now people like us are like, wait a minute, it was pretty cool, and I liked that. And wasn't it awesome when Venom was around? Shouldn't Venom just be in everything, right? And now we get the Venom now is in everything again. So I think that there's a little bit of that, and I'm interested to sort of see with Chris, because you're approaching this like all like kind of brand new.
It's like a baby deer.
Yeah, like you don't have the same sort of like, you know,
nostalgia.
Yeah, well, because it's like I got to like, you know, like one of the things when we ask somebody who is your favorite Saturday Night Live cast, it will always be the first one you saw because it was this watershed moment in life, right? Yeah. I was finally old enough to get to stay up and watch Saturday Night Live, and it's the same kind of thing with your X team.
Oh, I don't know that one. I love that everyone does use that as the. I have to be devil's advocate. Bill Hader, Andy Samberg, Amy Poehler, Maya Rudolph, like that group is still better than what I grew up with. They are so much right. Will Forte, like that whole group is better than my first group, which is the Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, Kevin Nealon, Mike Myers. But anyway.
But I guess what I'm saying is it isn't specifically that what we're saying is that they're like not like who is the better comedian, who is the better thespian, right? Mm-hmm. What we're saying is, that's what we're saying with some of the comics too, is does it make you feel the same thing that it did then? Right. There are probably lots of other X-Men issues that are better issues than 211.
Right.
Does it make me feel like, you know, in a bigger way than that issue 211 did? Right. And that's often what we're talking about when people come to, you know, comics, and when people come to any sort of, you know, like story, right, that hits them at that exact moment when they kind of needed it. That's my deep thought for your.
No, it's a good thought, and it matters. It's always a good reminder. I agree with you completely. David Cutler says most people are that way, but yeah, my favorite SNL cast is the one Jason is mentioning now. I started watching 96 and get confused about who was even on in those days. I think that example of SNL works perfectly, except for the fact that it's like a murderer's row of who also went on to influence comedy for like the next 20 years.
Yeah.
I think if they didn't, they're just so much better than everybody else in hindsight. But at the time, I don't think it was that great.
It's so funny because it is true. It's like what imprints on you, right? And in whatever
your favorite band is always
and so like the SNL one, just to throw some context into that, or some, you know. So I'm watching SNL now, not on Saturday nights. It's too late, but I watch the next day with my 13-year-old.
Epic.
And he now goes, as they do the intros, right? The intros, he's like, Mikey Day. And then I'm like, sure, man, whatever. And then he's like, a film by whatever those three guys do. I forget what their names are. They do, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
But he lists it off because it's in his head. He's like, I'm watching this thing. It's imprinting on me. I can say these comics names. And I'm like, sure. But it's really funny because you can tell that that's his part, you're seeing it live happen, right? Which is pretty cool. Please Don't Destroy. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
He's like, a film by Please Don't Destroy. I'm like, are you just shouting back what's on the TV?
I was at New York Comic Con on the weekend, and at one point I'm walking through the streets, and I walk past Sardi's, right? Like the famous restaurant that has all the caricature drawings of famous people in the front. And I was like, oh, apparently I'm now old enough that I don't recognize who the famous people are in the caricature window in Sardi's. Very good. Good for that.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
It's a rite of passage. You have to age out. I like the aging out process. It allows me to not care about a lot of things that I shouldn't be caring about, which is just perfect, which is absolutely perfect. There's a lot happening in the chat. We've hit over 2 hours. We don't ever go this long anyway. Do you guys mind if I call it?
I blame me. Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's
well, it's a gift. I look at it as a gift. I'm not blaming.
I've been talking about this issue for 2 years. So
I have, and
happy to.
And I'm definitely going to be excited to be back for issue 346. That's going to be really.
So June 21st, 2022 is when you messaged me and said, "Oh, can I do issue 211?"
There we go.
Okay, June 21st, 2022. So it's been well over 2 years that we've been. And I messaged you. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that's fine. That's it. A few years. Do you want to come on between now and then?" You're like, "No, that's my issue."
Yeah.
So of course, as always, as I say, like anytime you want to come on and talk,
You
you're
sent
most
me.
welcome.
You sent me. You're like, he's in for 211. I'm like, okay. And then you sent me the spreadsheet where it has like the guests and slots, and it's like this person, nothing, because we hadn't thought that far ahead. And then your name.
Amazing.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's very silly, and I'm glad we finally were able to do this. It's been on my
Yeah.
mind for a long time too, and always good to chat with you, whether it's at a convention, at a bar, or here now. I love hearing your take, and one of my absolute favorite things about you is that you do love things differently than me. Whereas that, I guess, 2 years between us is like that's the image difference. Like I'm out and you're in.
Yeah.
And I love it because I know how staunchly, I'm in for, let's just say, like 1986 G.I. Joe, and someone who's 2 years older than me is like, that was shit. G.I. Joe was only good for the first 20 issues, or 21 issues.
Yeah.
So everyone has their thing. And like you said, that moment in time is such a beautiful spot. And I wish, I guess my final thought to bring it all together is I wish for everyone of all ages that they get to have that moment with the thing that they love. And whether it's X-Men or whether it's Saturday Night Live or whether it's the best band in the world or your favorite hockey team, I hope everyone gets to find and always remember and love that moment, because it is what a great time to be a consumer of culture, and it just enriches us for all of life. So it's yum, 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 yum. It's such good stuff. Such good stuff. So that, my friends, brings us to the end of another episode of Previously in X-Men. Thank you to our special guest, Anthony Falcone.
Thank you, guys.
It's so good to see you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the near future. Are you at Wayside on the 27th?
No, I am not. I am not out there.
Right.
But yeah, I'm hoping to get out there at some point. I mean, because you know that I love a cocktail, so I'm hoping to get out there. Right.
Good thought. You should definitely get up there if you can. But given that you were away last weekend and you're finishing your book, like, get that done.
Yeah, got to do that.
Understood. And also thanks to our good buddy here, Chris Sanagan, writer of Group of Seven and Peregrines. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
And you can find out more about our comics and upcoming appearances at group7comics.ca, anthonyfalcone.com.
.ca. I'll find out whoever is staking out .com at some point, but I'm not paying them for it. So now, anthonyfalcone.ca. You can also find me.
I'll put it in the description below.
I'm also on Instagram and X, formerly Twitter, at A Falcone Writer. So you can find me there.
I'll put those in the description.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, if I knew how to work this technology a little bit better, I would have done like you guys did and had a little bubble underneath, but I don't.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't even thinking. I could have talked you through that next time.
Next time.
346.
346.
Yeah. This weekend, Chris and I will be at Wayside Comics and Cocktails, a special event called Wayside Creator Con, which is at the Market Brewery in Newmarket, Ontario. That is going to be a crazy Creator Con full of 1,000,001 talented local comic book creators. That should be a good time. Chris, you're going to have a pint with me?
Oh, yeah.
That'll be good. And then follow us. Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you, because the night before I'm seeing Iron Maiden. So I got to tell you all about that show. I'm expecting pyrotechnics. So there you go.
I want to know that your mind was blown and your eyebrows were singed off.
I hope so.
Yes. So you can follow us on social media, Group of Seven Comics. Of course, that's the number 7. And please click like, subscribe to the channel, like on the video. Tell all your friends who are into X-Men to join us every week. And tell us your take on X-Men. Was this a favorite issue for you? Add a little more in the chat. It's always helpful on the comments below. Other than that, I hope you all stay Xy, as David Cutler likes to say. And thanks, bub. And have a good night. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
See y'all.